trash problem over there in Philadelphia? Who in Philly in here? Who in Philly? Shout out to Sherelle Parker. Sherelle Parker is the mayor of Philly, I believe. And I heard y'all got a trash problem. Let me go ahead and share this with y'all. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications.
To the bargaining table today for the city and District Council 33. Both sides pausing after 12 hours of negotiations Wednesday, wrapping up only very early this morning. Today is day 3 of the city workers' strike, and Mayor Parker, she had this message trying to encourage residents.
The people of our great city of Philadelphia, that we will make it through this storm, and we will make it through this storm together. I want to thank you for your patience, for your understanding, and knowing that your city of Philadelphia, even in the midst of this strike and the work stoppage, is doing everything that we possibly can and using every tool and resource available.
Well, with workers still on the picket line, mounds of trash, as we've been telling you, they are piling up all over the city. Dumpsters are set up for people to dump their trash. Well, those are now overflowing, and some are now actually tossing their garbage right into the street. CBS News Philadelphia's Jan Carabeo live in South Philadelphia, where, Jan, it's understandable why these residents are getting more frustrated as the strike continues. Good morning.
Janelle, good morning. It is the sight, it is the smell, it is the rodents that are attracted to these huge piles of garbage, and this problem continues to grow.
Oh, man, that's not a good look, y'all. Philly, y'all got to do better, bro. Philly, they got y'all over a barrel over there. Y'all got to do better, bro. Y'all throwing y'all trash on the street, Philly? So if y'all don't have a trash can, you don't take it and actually take it over to whatever the facilities are that process the trash, you telling me you're too lazy. And all y'all gonna now develop is a bigger rodent problem. And it's hot outside, y'all done. The longer that this goes, the worse it's gonna get. Somebody said no disrespect to Philly, but y'all city always look dirty. I've never been to Philly before, so I don't know anything about it. I don't know as much about it. But if that's what y'all, I looked at a video on Instagram. I looked at a video on Instagram, and there was trash piled into the street, lined up for as long as your eye can see. It was almost like people took this type of dumpster and they just dumped it all into the street. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. People had basically just dumped all of their trash into the street. So now you have city leaders that is negotiating with the union. The union is striking and saying that they want more money, more benefits, and all of that. Now, we know that the majority of these blue cities are absolutely hamstrung, right? We know that they filing for bankruptcy. They ain't got no money, but the unions don't care about that. The workers don't care about that. They like, listen, I want my money and I want it now. I don't really care about what it is that you're doing. And so what we going to do is we going to stand tall and we going to stand on strike. And now the residents are going to start to revolt, which then reflect back on the city leaders, because the city leaders can't negotiate a decent deal with the union in order to make sure that they got some, decent trash services. That's crazy. That's crazy, bro. Look at that.
With each garbage bag that is thrown onto the heap there. We're coming to you live from the corner of Broad and Snyder Avenue. You can see that dumpster is filled to the...
Did you just see the dude that just dropped it right there in the street?
Live from the corner of Broad and Snyder.
Hold on. The people are holding their nose as they're walking by, and another person is actually walking up to throw his trash right there in a white man.
Bag that is thrown onto the heap there. We're coming to you live from the corner of Broad and Snyder Avenue. You can see that dumpster is filled to the brim and now overflowing. People who are dropping off their trash before heading to work or anywhere else today, they have to drop the.
And let me tell you, that's crazy. Y'all some wild boys over there in Philly. Y'all some wild boys over there in Philly. Y'all just walk up right there in front of the camera and just throw your trash right there? Ugh. Awesome. And let me tell you what else people do. A lot of times, people drive out of their way to drop their trash off in a different neighborhood so that it doesn't affect them. So, like for example, I would be willing to bet money, and I bet you that I'm right more than I'm wrong, is that people will actually, like, it's not going to be anybody that lives close or anything like that. It's going to be somebody that takes their trash out, but they don't want it to affect their neighborhood. And so what they'll do is then they'll dump it somewhere else. That's what we used to have as a problem in Detroit. When people would dump tires or they would dump trash or whatever like that, what they would do is they wouldn't want to go to the landfill, or they wouldn't want to go to the facilities that actually handled that. And so what they would do is they would go out late at night and they would just dump it in a neighborhood that they felt like was a little bit more downtrodden and it wasn't a good neighborhood. And so in order to preserve their stuff, they just dumped everything over there, and then they would let the city have to deal with it and pick it up. That's what they did in the city on a regular basis. We had that problem, and then it would make it seem like, oh man, Detroit ain't got it together. No, it would be people from the suburbs, it would be companies from the suburbs, it would be people that's doing work, and then they would go and they would dump it in a less than ideal neighborhood or into a lot, an abandoned or a vacant lot, and then they would dump it and then expect for the city to come and pick it up. And that's how you started to deal with. That's how we started to develop some of the blight that we would deal with. And people basically drive it down, and they do that. Now, what happens in suburban neighborhoods, and this is across the board, the city services is much different than a lot of these suburban neighborhoods. One of the reasons why we have HOAs, or you have HOAs, is because they are basically taking care of their own stuff as well as putting restrictions on the things that you can and can't do inside of the neighborhood. So now you're seeing one of the benefits of the HOAs, because the HOA will hire their own trash company to get the trash. They hire their own mosquito spraying for the summer. They make sure that they do the streets to where do all of the cracks in the streets. And so then you don't have that same type of problem where you're dependent on city services. So if you don't have good leadership inside of your city, this is the type of stuff that you're going to deal with. If you don't have good city services inside of your city, this is the type of stuff that you're going to deal with. This is a failure of leadership. And obviously, we still see the uncivilized ones in society that's continuing to throw trash, even though the dumpster is full. But this is the failure of leadership. Hold your leadership accountable.
The trash off beside the dumpster now on the street here on Snyder Avenue. And this is just one of 63 trash drop-off spots located across the city as Philadelphia city workers continue to strike today. CBS News Philadelphia here as neighbors all morning long dropped off trash to these trash heaps. The city tells us that they are monitoring drop-off locations just like this one to see if more dumpsters need to be added. They say the dumpsters are scheduled to be serviced multiple times a day, but it can take those crews some time to make their way around the city. So city leaders are asking for people's patience. But as you can imagine, neighbors just want the strike to end soon. They say this is a nightmare situation. We spoke to one man who tossed his trash into his car and made the hot, smelly ride to one of these drop-off sites. Take a listen.
Believe me, it was smelling by the time I got here, and I'm only a block and a half away. It's a disgrace, really. I think it is. I mean, it's such a short period of time, and look at a big mound of trash there is.
Give them whatever they want and just come back to work.
So when could that happen? Well, we're told, as Janelle mentioned, negotiations wrapped up early this morning, right before 1:30, and will resume later.
So basically what the city is doing is contracting work out to Waste Management. They created 60-something sites. Waste management then comes in and picks it up on certain, every multiple different times throughout the day. But waste management is basically servicing an entire city of Philadelphia. What is the population of Philadelphia? Let me see. 1.5 million people is allegedly in Philadelphia as of 2023 census.
Today, in the meantime, with no deal in place, scenes like this will be playing out
No,
across the city
I don't
now.
think that waste management. I don't think it's a waste management problem. Okay, so the cities usually have their own trash services. All right, so that's usually what happens. I think the city is basically subsidizing because the workers are on strike for their own personal trash services, and so the city is bringing in an external company to basically come in and pick up and drop off the trash. Jay Graham, stop! Don't do that, Jay Graham. Don't do that. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about Patreon conversations inside of the inside of the chat. We don't talk about Patreon conversations on the regular show. That's not what we do. We got Stock Club coming up, and we're going to have that conversation, but that's not what we do, big dog. That's not what we do. We don't have Patreon conversations. If you want to do that, then you can take it over to the Discord. And the link to the Discord is in the description of any of the most recent videos inside of the Patreon. But we don't talk about none of that. We don't talk about our portfolios. We don't go into that. We leave that be. Are we good, Jay Graham? Thank you for the apology. Let's stay focused, y'all. Let's stay focused. Let's get back into this conversation about Philly trash.
Jennifer, already having a big impact on so many neighborhoods. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, I mean, very similar. This dumpster is overflowing. It has, gone past the brim here, and you can see the overflowing garbage on the sides as well. And as it stands,
all trash companies are basically being deployed to try to service this problem, and it's right next to it looks like a park.
Definitely smells like garbage, but every time someone decides to throw one of the garbage bags and add it to the top, there is a waft of that, garbage smell that you can really start to smell as people come along here. But, a lot of people have been stopping by, some who are just carrying bags of trash, now they're just kind of dumping it right beside the dumpster. So a lot of people just frustrated by this experience. And a lot of people who I spoke to also saying they will not be taking for granted trash service and the people who do the job.
I think it's a little ridiculous because trash is like a non-negotiable.
Up and down residential streets in Philadelphia, the trash was taken out but never picked up.
Honestly, just makes it super congested as well with everybody that's walking around and smelly, of course.
The city's largest municipal workers union, District Council 33, went on strike as soon as the clock struck midnight July 1st. Its 9,000 members work across city service departments, but the most visible impact so far are the sanitation workers on strike.
I was bummed because we had a lot of trash outside our house.
The city set up over 60 temporary drop-off sites like this one on 18th and Catherine Streets.
Bringing it for the elderly neighbors that can't really walk it over.
Some walked blocks with garbage bags in hand, while others pulled up and pulled out trash bags from their trunks.
This is ridiculous. There was no plan.
Ryan Thornburg and his neighbors in Graduate Hospital worry a mountain of garbage will attract unwanted pests.
They just told us to bring the trash to a corner. They didn't have the dumpster until, an hour ago? Pay the workers. This is ridiculous. Now we live next to a dump.
We don't have problems with rodents or anything like that on this block. So I'm hoping it'll do just like what they say.
Neighbors were told the dumpster will be emptied tonight, but what they'd really like to see is a new contract so the DC 33 strike can be over.
But I think it's really embarrassing because a lot of people are going to come to the city this week and there's going to be a ton of trash everywhere.
Solve it. Get it done.
It's hot. It's going to be smelly. but we'll survive.
A lot of people don't even know what the hell is going on until something like this happens. Then everybody want to get engaged. Hey, what's going on with politics and city services? Man, listen, most cities have a weekly meeting or they have multiple different meetings. The most large cities, smaller cities is a little bit different. But most cities have weekly meetings that would allow for you to actually voice your concerns. You can pay attention to different contracts that's going on. You don't even have to go into the meetings themselves because they usually happen in the daytime and you can listen online. All of that different stuff. A lot of people ain't even familiar with what goes on. But don't you want to know where your tax dollars are going? Don't you want to know that when they put together a proposed budget or some of the issues that they have coming up in whatever city that you live in respectively, that you can pay attention to what's going on? Some of y'all didn't even know that this was happening until I started talking about it. So you can find out more about what's going on in your city before it starts to happen so that you can vote in or have a conversation and then put your input in on what goes in inside of your city. But most people don't want to engage. You don't believe that your tax, you let them spend your tax dollars without any kind of representation, and you just expect for things to just go as normal.